4 teams, 7 years, 0 respect. That is the Sam Darnold story that nobody wanted to talk about, until he made every single one of them regret it. The Jets drafted him 3rd overall and then watched him drown in one of the worst-run franchises in NFL history. Carolina cut him. San Francisco didn't even blink before moving on. At that point, most guys hang up their cleats and quietly disappear. But Darnold? He walked into Minnesota in 2024 and lit the whole league on fire. 2 straight 14-win seasons, Pro Bowl, Super Bowl champion. The guy everyone buried came back and built his own grave for the doubters. And the craziest part? He did it without saying a single word to his haters. No revenge speech, no "I told you so." Just wins, piling up week after week until there was nothing left to argue about. Of 4 teams passed on this man, and he made all 4 of them look stupid on the biggest stage in football. How does a guy go from being the NFL's biggest disappointment to its most dangerous quarterback? That story starts with a road so rough, most players wouldn't have survived it. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Most quarterbacks get 1 shot, maybe 2 if they are lucky. Sam Darnold used all 5 and still came out on top. The Jets were a disaster from day one. Bad coaching, bad roster, bad everything. Darnold was a young kid trying to build something in a place that was already falling apart. Then Carolina handed him a team that was rebuilding from scratch. Then San Francisco kept him just long enough to decide he wasn't their answer. Every single stop felt like another door slamming in his face. Any normal person would have packed up and gone home. But Darnold kept showing up, kept studying film, kept preparing like a starter even when nobody was treating him like one. That kind of belief in yourself when the whole world has checked out on you, that is not common. That is rare. Then Minnesota happened, and everything changed overnight. New system, new teammates, new energy, and suddenly the guy everyone had written off was carving up defenses like he belonged in the conversation with the best quarterbacks in the league. That one season in Minnesota didn't just save his career, it completely rewrote his story. And when Seattle came calling, Darnold didn't walk through that door. He kicked it wide open. But here's what nobody is really talking about. What was actually going on inside his head through all of this? Yeah, because the physical journey is one thing. The mental battle he was fighting? That is a whole different level. Here is something that will mess with your head a little. A guy gets cut by 4 teams, gets called a bust on national television, gets laughed at by analysts for years. And when he finally wins the Super Bowl, he has absolutely nothing to say to his haters. Nothing. 0. Not a single word. That is not normal. That is not how most people are wired. But Darnold had one rule he lived by through all of it. Flush it and move forward. Bad game? Gone. Bad season? Gone. Another team showing him the door? Gone. He once talked about a Jerry Rice quote that stuck with him. Rice said he never had a perfect practice or a perfect game in his entire Hall of Fame career. And something about that just unlocked something in Darnold's brain. He stopped chasing perfect. He stopped beating himself up after every bad rep. He stopped letting one ugly throw ruin his entire week. Instead, he just reset, showed up the next day, and kept going. Quietly. Consistently. Like a man who already knew how his story was going to end. And that mental toughness, that ability to take punch after punch and never change who he was, is exactly what made him dangerous when the right opportunity finally came. Because when you stop playing scared, when you stop worrying about what people think, you play free. And a quarterback playing free is the scariest thing in the NFL. His coaches saw it, his teammates felt it, and pretty soon the whole league was gonna see it too. But none of that happens without the people around him. You can fool the media. You can fool the analysts sitting behind their desks, but you cannot fool the guys in your own locker room. They see everything. Every practice, every bad day, every moment when the pressure is at its highest. And every single one of them will tell you the same thing about Sam Darnold. This guy does not crack. Tight end A.J. Barner said it best. Late in the season, overtime game against the Rams, season on the line, Barner looked around that huddle and said Darnold was in complete control. Not nervous, not forcing anything, just locked in, calm, and ready to go win the game. That is not something you can fake in a moment like that. And then there was Garrett Bradbury, Darnold's former center in Minnesota, playing for the other side in the Super Bowl. Even he came out and said it straight. Darnold does not play for revenge. He plays for the guy standing next to him, period. Then came the postseason, where Darnold was dealing with a real oblique injury that had him limited all week in practice. Most quarterbacks use that as an excuse. Darnold went out and played some of the cleanest football of his entire career. No turnovers, no panic, just cold, calculated execution when everything was on the line. The people closest to him were not surprised at all, because they had seen this version of Darnold long before the rest of the world caught on. But while his teammates were believing in him from day one in Seattle, there was one man upstairs watching all of this with a very different kind of smile on his face. And that man is head coach Mike Macdonald. Winning the Super Bowl changes everything around you. The phones blow up. The interview requests never stop. Everybody wants a piece of you. But Mike Macdonald walked into the NFL annual meetings in Scottsdale like a man who had absolutely no idea what all the fuss was about. And that was not an act. At the Arizona Biltmore, Macdonald had back-to-back interviews lined up all afternoon. ESPN, Kay Adams, SiriusXM, one right after another. But the moment that said everything about this man happened before any of those cameras even turned on. He was walking toward his big ESPN feature interview when he stopped, turned to the team's communications director and asked, "What is this interview even about?" The answer was, "You." And Macdonald genuinely looked caught off guard. Not in a fake humble way, in a real actual "this did not cross my mind" way. 2 years ago, this same man was at these same meetings answering questions about who his quarterback was even going to be that season. Now he is a Super Bowl winning head coach, and he still cannot quite believe the camera is pointed at him. That is who Mike Macdonald is. And that energy flows straight down to his team. When your head coach is not caught up in fame, not chasing credit, not obsessed with his own story, your locker room feels it. Your players play looser. They play harder. They play for each other instead of for headlines. Macdonald built that culture from scratch in Seattle, and it showed up every single week on that field. But building a championship culture is one thing. Keeping it together when the money gets real and the big decisions hit, that falls on one man. Most general managers in this league celebrate a Super Bowl and then spend the whole offseason telling everyone how perfect their roster is. Not John Schneider. He sat down, looked straight at the reporter, and said something that stopped everybody cold. Sam Darnold has not even peaked yet. Think about that for a second. This man just won 14 games, just won a Super Bowl, just made back-to-back Pro Bowls. And his own GM is sitting there saying the best is still coming. But Schneider was not just talking to talk. He had a very specific reason behind that belief. Darnold was entering his second season in Seattle. Second year in the same offense, second year building chemistry with the same weapons, second year under the same coaching staff. And in the NFL, that second year comfort is everything. Schneider kept saying one thing over and over. Darnold is not a quarterback who stands apart from his team. He is one of the guys. He sits in the same meetings, grinds through the same film sessions, and holds himself to the same standard as every other player on that roster. No superstar treatment, no separation, just a football player who happens to play quarterback. And according to Schneider, that is exactly what makes him a great leader. Schneider also pointed to the weapons around Darnold getting sharper heading into the new season. More reps with Jackson Smith and Jigba. More chemistry with Rashid Shaheed, who came in mid-season last year and barely had time to settle in. A tight end group that was already playing at a high level. Everything around Darnold was only getting better, and Schneider knew it. The foundation was locked in. Now it was time to make the hard calls and protect it. Championships come with a price tag. And Seattle paid it hard this offseason. Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker III walked out the door straight to Kansas City. 3 years, $45 million. Edge rusher Boy Mafe, gone to Cincinnati for $60 million. Kobe Bryant took $40 million from Chicago. Tarek Woolen signed with Philadelphia. In one offseason, Seattle lost some of the exact players who helped them win it all. Any other franchise panics at that point. Starts throwing money at big-name free agents. Makes desperate moves trying to plug holes. Schneider did none of that. Instead, he re-signed Rashid Shaheed, locked up cornerback Josh Jobe, and brought in smart low-risk additions like running back Emmanuel Wilson and corner Noah Igbinoghene to compete for the open spots. No panic. No overpaying, just calculated, disciplined roster building. Exactly the way Seattle has always operated. But the move that mattered most had nothing to do with the guys who left. Schneider locked up Jackson Smith-Njigba on a 4-year, $168 million deal, making him the highest-paid wide receiver in NFL history. Darnold's most dangerous weapon was not going anywhere. And with Darnold himself already secured on his own deal, Seattle's core was sealed tight. The foundation did not crumble after the Super Bowl. It got stronger. But Schneider was not just building for this season. He had his eyes locked on something much bigger down the road. Seattle is not just trying to defend a championship. They are quietly building something that could last for years. And the rest of the NFL should be very worried about that. Schneider already has his eyes locked on the 2027 draft class, a class that scouts across the league consider significantly deeper than this year's group. And here's the part that makes it scary. Because of all the players Seattle lost in free agency this offseason, the league is projecting 4 compensatory picks heading their way in 2027. Stack those on top of their regular selections, and Seattle is looking at 12 total picks in one single draft. 12. Devin Witherspoon's extension is also expected to get done this offseason, locking up one of the best young corners in the entire league. Offensive tackles Charles Cross and Abe Lucas are already re-signed and protecting Darnold on both sides. And with HBO's Hard Knocks cameras coming to Seattle for the first time in 2026, the whole country is about to get a front row seat to exactly how this machine operates from the inside. This is what a dynasty looks like in its early stages. Not a team celebrating and then falling apart, but a team that wins, reloads, and comes back hungrier. Darnold is not slowing down. McDonald is not getting comfortable. Schneider is not done building. And somewhere out there right now, there are 4 or 5 quarterbacks sitting on the bench for struggling franchises, wondering if their time will ever come, just like Darnold once did. The NFL has a funny way of humbling everyone, but every once in a while, it rewards the ones who never stop believing. Sam Darnold proved that, and Seattle is just getting started. Blessings to all my subscribers, family. Your support means everything. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and I catch you in the next one.